Liam had always adored his grandmother and all the elegant outfits that she wore. When the old lady finally passed, Liam had been distraught but was given one of her most prized possessions, an antique brooch. As Liam cleaned it one day, he noticed a strange engraving, a cryptic message hinting at its origin. He turned to Jewel, a jeweler, gemologist, and renowned historian. However, as Jewel inspected the brooch, her eyes widened. "I can't believe this. How did this come into your grandmother's possession? How had it come into his grandmother's possession?" But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't. And hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Though as he saw Jewel's shocked face, he knew he had to find out. How she had said it made Liam think it wasn't supposed to be in her possession or now in his. Liam had a stellar memory in remembering things that most would have forgotten. Because of this, he was sure he would discover the truth by looking at his memories. Liam had adored his grandmother ever since he was young. Though the little boy had always favored her, they only became closer after the incident. After a night of babysitting by his late grandmother, Beth, they had heard the most unfortunate news. Looking back, Liam still couldn't believe how it all had happened. He had been lucky enough to stay with his grandmother during that night. Yeah, if he hadn't, his life would have never been the same. Not only did Liam lose his parents that night, Beth had lost her precious son. Beth only told him what exactly had happened when he had become old enough. So regardless of everything, Grandma Beth and Grandpapa Charles had taken him in without a second thought. Though they would never replace his parents, his grandparents had always been good to him. Well, sometimes they were a bit strict, but now that Liam was older, he believed that every parent needed to be a little strict. If every parent had been that way, they might have still been alive. When Liam was 14, Grandma Beth finally told him that his parents had died due to a car crash. According to her, it had been a drunk driver hitting their car fatally as the person had gone through a red light. Liam had been distraught by the news but understood why she had kept it from him when he was younger, especially since the drunk driver had survived without a scratch on him. According to Grandma Beth, he was released from jail after 3 years. She had asked him not to look for him, and he had always held himself to that promise. It worried Liam, and his brows furrowed as he looked at Jewel. "I don't know how she got it, but I know when I first saw it." He let out a small breath before he continued. "The first time I actively remember her wearing it was during my parents' funeral." Jewel's shocked face changed to a sorrowful one. Liam had always been sensitive regarding his parents' death. He had loved living with his grandparents, and it always made him feel a bit guilty toward them. In the end, their passing was needed for Liam to live with Beth and Charles, which always made him feel guilty. His grandpa had Alzheimer's disease. Every time he went there, he would have to explain where Grandma Beth was, or he would be mistaken for his late father, James. He didn't want to break his grandfather's heart again. Liam's hands clutched the steering wheel as he and Jewel drove towards Aunt Mary's house. The weight of the brooch in his pocket felt like a tangible echo of the past. Kitchen arriving at Aunt Mary's cottage, surrounded by a vibrant garden, they were greeted with warmth and surprise. "What brings you here unexpectedly?" Aunt Mary asked, her eyes reflecting curiosity and affection. In Aunt Mary's living room, Liam presented the brooch. "Do you know its origins?" he asked. Aunt Mary, peering at the brooch, recalled, "Beth always wore this ... but where it came from, I don't know." Her touch on the brooch was delicate, her expression thoughtful. Aunt Mary added, "After the accident, Beth changed. She became more secretive. It's as though she bore a hidden, personal sorrow." Liam and Jewel exchanged a look. Back at his grandmother's house, Liam delved into old boxes filled with memories. Amidst the clutter of keepsakes, he found an old photograph, its edges worn with time. Younger but unmistakably her, adorned with the brooch. Beside her stood a man Liam didn't recognize. Who was this man, and what role had he played in Beth's life? Liam and Jewel sat, the photograph between them, immersed in a sea of speculation. Could Henderson be a friend? A lover, perhaps? Jewel pondered. Determined, Liam decided it was time to pursue this new lead. "We need to find Mr. Henderson," he declared, a newfound resolve in his voice. Jewel nodded in agreement, her expression mirroring Liam's determination. If Mr. Henderson was still around, he might hold the key to unraveling the mystery of the brooch. With the name Mr. Henderson as their only clue, Liam began his search, diving into the depths of his grandmother's past. He scoured through old address books, sifted through letters, and made calls to anyone who might have known Beth well. Their persistence began to bear fruit as they neared the truth about Mr. Henderson's whereabouts. Their search culminated in locating Mr. Henderson, an elderly man whose life was a tapestry of stories and experiences. As Mr. Henderson reminisced, his face softened with fond memories. He spoke of Beth with affection, recalling shared moments and laughter. However, when the topic shifted to the brooch, his demeanor changed. "There's more to that brooch than meets the eye," he mused, his eyes reflecting a knowingness that he didn't elaborate on. This vague hint tantalized Liam and Jewel, suggesting depths and secrets yet to be uncovered, yet Mr. Henderson remained tight-lipped about the details. As the meeting with Mr. Henderson drew to a close, Liam felt a tide of frustration washing over him. Mr. Henderson, who seemed to be a promising link to the past, had only deepened the mystery with his evasiveness. Liam and Jewel left Mr. Henderson's place with mixed emotions. Liam and Jewel began their research into the accident. They combed through old newspapers, police reports, and court records, piecing together the events of that fateful night. The more they uncovered, the more real it became, a tragedy encapsulated in paper and ink. The driver, once an abstract source of pain, became a real person in Liam's mind. This journey through the past was not just about finding answers, it was also about facing the demons that had lingered in the shadows of Liam's life for too long. I think their persistence paid off when they finally located the current whereabouts of the drunk driver. This information was a significant breakthrough, turning a page in their search for the truth. Liam, delving into the post-accident life of the driver, discovered surprising details. The man had seemingly turned his life around after serving time. Public records and news articles painted a picture of transformation and penance. The driver, once a symbol of tragedy in his family's life, now emerged as a figure of remorse and change. It was a narrative Liam hadn't anticipated, complicating his feelings of anger and loss. Further research revealed that the driver had dedicated his life to helping others avoid his mistakes. He lived modestly, was involved in community outreach, and spoke at events about the dangers of drunk driving. This information painted a picture of a man profoundly changed by his past actions. For Liam, this posed a moral quandary. With resolve, Liam reached out to the driver. The phone call was fraught with tension. The driver's voice, hesitant on the other end, conveyed a sense of apprehension. The anticipation of the meeting hung over Liam like a cloud, a mix of dread and an intense desire for some form of resolution. The day arrived with a heavy weight of significance. Liam, accompanied by Jewel, drove to the meeting place, his heart pounding with each mile they covered. The meeting began with palpable tension. The driver, initially guarded, became visibly shaken upon seeing the brooch in Liam's possession. The conversation, initially tense, gradually transformed into a more open exchange as the driver confronted the ghosts of his past in the presence of the brooch. As the driver spoke, his voice lightened with emotion. He expressed a lifetime of remorse. He shared his journey since the accident, including his commitment to sobriety and efforts to make amends. Liam listened, the driver's remorse echoing his own family's grief, creating a complex tapestry of shared pain and regret. Liam came to see the brooch in a new light. It was no longer just a mysterious heirloom, it was a symbol of the driver's sorrow, a physical manifestation of his regret. The brooch's journey, from a cherished family possession to a token of remorse, mirrored the tragic intertwining of Liam's and the driver's lives. Liam began to see the brooch and the driver not just as symbols of loss, but also as reminders of the human capacity for error and the possibility of redemption. The driver explained that the engraving on the brooch was a crest, belonging to the wealthy family from whom it was originally stolen. This crest linked the brooch to a lineage of prominence and prestige, further deepening its historical significance. For Liam, this new information painted the brooch not just as a personal family artifact, but as a piece of history, carrying with it the stories and legacies of those who had once possessed it. Liam reflected on how Beth must have grappled with the brooch's complex history. Liam realized that Beth had silently borne the weight of this knowledge, wrestling with the moral ambiguities it presented. The brooch thus symbolized not just guilt and remorse, but also the silent struggles and unspoken burdens carried by his grandmother. Liam pondered the interwoven paths of those affected by the brooch, reflecting on the profound and often complicated process of forgiving and being forgiven. In the end, Liam chose to keep the brooch. It had become a symbol of his family's history, a tangible link to the past with all its complexities and intricacies. The brooch, with its layers of meaning from a family heirloom to a token of remorse, from a stolen object to a symbol of forgiveness, would serve as a constant reminder of human fallibility and the redemptive power of forgiveness. And in embracing the brooch, Liam embraced its entire legacy, accepting it as a part of his own story.